I've been training to run across the state of Utah for 18 weeks now, and I'm very behind on my editing, so we're just going to do a recap. Here's my recap of the last 18 weeks of training to run 430 miles across the state of Utah. Before we really dive into what every week looked like over the last 18 weeks, to give it a quick recap, this training block has been one of the most difficult and one of the most chaotic training blocks I've ever done. For the last 18 weeks, I have spent 15 of those 18 weeks injured or sick. We have truly pushed every limit, every boundary, doing things that I probably shouldn't be doing, but we're doing them anyways because we're trying to find what true human potential looks like and what we really can accomplish when we put our mind to something. So we've been running through illness, through injury, nothing that I condone and nothing that I think anybody should do, but it's something that I'm doing to really see what I'm capable of. And so that's what this has been. So without further ado, let's dive into the recap.
I'm the Buff Runner, and this is the Run Across Utah. 430 miles from Logan to St. George, raising money for single parents.
All right, so let's go back all the way to week one. Starting on October 28th of 2024, 18 weeks ago. At this point, my wife and I were actually living in our RV. We were traveling up the California coast. I just graduated from school. It'd been a few months since I'd graduated, and at this point we were just in the middle of our travels up the California coast, living in our vintage RV with our two dogs, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. One of the best experiences of my life. This is also when I started my training, was while we were on this trip, and I think it was the perfect way to start because I was in a tough headspace coming out of school, and I'd actually done 6 ultramarathons in 6 months, but it really took it out of me because I was in the middle of grad school and clinical rotations, and it was nice being able to do this training on the California coast because it just made the runs a little bit more fun and different and something that I hadn't done before. That's where we started, was in Fort Bragg, California. On that first week, I should have known how chaotic this training block was going to be because literally the 6th day of the training block, I signed up for a 10K. Some random 10K that donated money to a local wildlife foundation down there in Fort Bragg, and I was like, let's run it, and ended up actually getting 3rd place, which is pretty wild because I haven't been a speed guy since like 2022. It's been a long time since I've done anything speed, and so it was fun to see what I could do, and to crank out a third place finish is pretty wild. Now, mind you, it was a small race, but we still got that 3rd place in the bag. And that was pretty much week one. You know, it was a low mileage week. I think we only ran 25 miles that week, and took it again, ran that race, and it was fun and just a great way to kick off this training block. Coming into week 2, we were still in the RV, obviously, and we were traveling up the California coast still. We actually went pretty much about as north as you can go, but at this point we'd stopped in a small town called Trinidad. The second week wasn't anything special. It was a pretty standard week. That week we actually ended up running about 30 miles that week. It was a 28.7 miles, and all those miles again were ran in Trinidad, California. That was one of my favorite places I've ever been. One of the prettiest places I think I could have run. I wish that I had this camera that I have been filming all of this new content on while I was there, because I would have been able to capture some really cool things while we were down there. I got to experience some really fun runs. You know, same thing as we jump into week 3, we're still in Trinidad, California. This was actually our last week in the RV before we moved back to Utah. Again, a beautiful week. 34 miles running through the California coast. While we were in the RV, I actually had a portable pull-up bar, which was really cool to be able to do some strength training while I was out on the road. And living in the RV, I was still able to get in my strength training because, you know, Buff Runner style. So I was doing strength training in these first few weeks still. Then we jump into our 4th week of training. This week was crazy because we were actually out running a massive storm. If anybody remembers the bomb cyclone that hit the Northwest, we were actually running away from that. Our RV is a 1988. It is not built to sustain massive weather like that. You know, we're planning on being home for Thanksgiving, and so we needed to leave at a decent time. We also had to time this weather because we also had to drive through the Sierra Nevadas, which, you know, is notorious for horrible weather. So we were outrunning the storm. We still got caught in part of it because it showed up like 2 days early. We were able to safely make our way out, but we had to make a couple of stops. Did some running on a treadmill at the hotel that we stayed at. So this week there actually wasn't very much running. We used it as a deload week. I only ran 18 miles that week. But I did a lot of strength training that week. I utilized the hotel gyms and did some campsites at some gyms and stuff like that. And then I also was able to run on a treadmill this week. But this was kind of our moving week as we were moving back to Utah, and then capped off the week with my first run back in Utah since my 24-hour run, but my first time back in Utah, like living in Utah in over a year, which was just awesome to be back. As we're coming into week 5 was our first, I think I'd like to call it our first real week. We're back in Utah. We're not quite settled yet, but at this point we're starting to increase the amount of miles that we're running. I've also been hurt. That's part of the reason we did the deload is I actually was dealing with a small injury at that time. And then we get back to Utah, and Utah happened to have one of the worst inversions. Inversion is where all the bad air gets trapped here. I got super sick, and it caused a really bad illness that actually lasted for about 10 weeks. But this is our first real week of training, and also when I got sick that really truly started the spiraling kind of chaos that has ensued. But this is week 5. We did a 40-mile week. In week 5 it was 38.1 miles, and this is where the training really began as we started to actually implement doubles and different things like that. Jumping over to week 6 again, this is when I got sick, so the miles actually decreased back down to 33 miles. I'm still sick. I'm still dealing with this, trying to figure out what's going on, continuing to train, but I also was giving myself a bit of a break, partially because I was just struggling. We got 33 miles in this week, kind of a messy week. We got it done. Jumping into the next week, the illness got even worse, and we only ran 7 miles. I was sick this week, and so I actually took 3 days off from training. I only trained 4 days this week, and we only ran 7 miles. We jump into week 8. We're back up 34 miles, trying to just kind of rebuild. Things kind of got a little derailed, still sick. A lot of this was just this personal mental grind that I was kind of going through. Sometimes can be hard to put to words and capture on camera, but that's kind of where we were at with all of this. Is it was just this mental, like, why am I sick? This is feeling impossible, and so on and so forth. I did realize that we needed to make a jump. So when we jumped into week 9, I was like, we just gotta I know I'm still sick, but we just gotta push it. So we jumped up to 44 miles, it was 43.6 miles. I got a little bit of trail running in this week, which was fun and nice. Next week, we jump up to 45 miles, 45 and a half, still sick. And this is when the treadmill miles started to build. We did 20 miles on the treadmill this week. So this week I did 20 miles on the treadmill. This was a mental battle. That's what so much of this was just this mental grind to get this done and know that I just have to keep training, even though I am not in the best place mentally or physically. Week 11, again, nothing overly special. 48 miles, a good mix of road and treadmill. This was the week we had started to incorporate some really big runs, like 20-mile runs. Started to test those longer runs and what they felt like on the body. That was when this started, was week 11. Week 12 was an intentional deload. I finally had my medicine for my nose and we were clearing things up. Kind of gave the body a bit of time to just like reset a touch before we made a big jump. This week we did 34 miles. Nothing special. We actually did most of the miles on the treadmill this week. I don't quite remember this week. I do remember it just being a reset week. That was week 12. Week 13, the big boy miles begin. That week we did 62 miles. We made a big jump. It was a necessary jump and also a jump that we had been planning on for a while. It's not like it came out of nowhere. It was something we'd been planning on. We were planning on, more of like a 20% jump versus your 5 to 10% jumps. And so this week was a big week, running 62 miles. It was my first really big week in a long time. This week, I started to realize how much the miles add up. I forgot what it was like to run a lot of miles in a week like this. This is when you start to feel those miles add up. This whole time, by the way, still strength training at least once a week, but the goal is to hit it twice a weekend. This was our first truly big week. The next week, we hit 64 miles. This week was nice because I was actually able to get outside a little bit more. Instead of running instead of running 40 miles on the treadmill, I ran 18 miles on the treadmill and 40 miles outside. Then we also got in a little bit of trail running, which is always nice to mix that in there. So this is just, we're continuing to ramp, and I'm really, really starting to feel this back-to-back nature of running. This is also the week that my knee injury started. So I had a run on February 1st, and this, I think, is the run that is what started all of this. So, little story about the knee. I actually originally injured it doing push-ups. Of all things, we injured it doing push-ups. I hit my knee really, really hard on the ground and subluxed my kneecap. Nothing vital, but it more felt like a bone bruise. So I continued to run, and the pain kind of went away, but it slowly started to come back. I think at that point, it was that run. If I had just run on a treadmill, I don't think I'd be dealing with this injury right now. You know, you always look back and you look at the what ifs, and I'm not looking at this as a what if. I'm looking at this as what caused it. But we ran outside. We ended up developing this injury, and then pushing it the next day like I did, I think really just tipped the scales. So as we jumped into the next week, I only ran 8 miles because we took the week off. Next week, we jumped into a 70-mile week. The pain never went away. That whole week that I was just doing strength training, the pain never went away. So at this point, I just continued to run through the pain. Every single day, the pain was there, I would just run. I was doing a lot of treadmill miles because the treadmill had no incline. Incline, specifically the downhill part, because once you run up, you gotta run back down. The downhills hurt my knee a lot. I found that running on the treadmill didn't hurt. So I was doing a lot of miles on the treadmill. This week I did 45 miles on the treadmill. I did 25 miles outside. The mental of running 45 miles on the treadmill is something I would not wish upon my worst enemy. It is brutal. And especially when you're also fighting knee pain. I did lock in this week. I woke up every morning feeling like I was gonna throw up from the pain. But I was like, we are getting this done. I don't care how I get it done. We put on that hat, we run. And I was actually able to block out a lot of the pain by doing that, but it was exhausting. So we jump into week 17 of the training. I tried to push it the first 2 days of this past week. So we finished the 70-mile week. I'm in a lot of pain. We jump into week 17. I continue to run 12 miles a day, and the pain was just unbearable. Part of it was mental. Part of it was I was really, really struggling because it took so much mental energy to fight the pain. And then I had to go do all of my work stuff. I had to do all the Run Utah stuff. And then I also just have to find the wherewithal to even go for these runs anymore. This is when we started our cross training. Last week, I ran 21 miles. I biked 60 miles, and then I swam 4.5 miles in this last week. And now we are currently in week 18 of the training block, and we're just doing cross training right now. I will have a whole separate video for week 18 to kind of break down everything that's going on in week 18. So this kind of caps off the past. We're in week 18, but this kind of caps off, the past 18 weeks. I'm going to have a whole separate video just for this week, and my goal is to actually be able to have a video for each week leading up to when we actually do this run, because we're getting close. We're 38 days away. 38 days away sitting here right now. I was having some editing issues, and I was having just some issues with some different things. I have a new phone, some other things, and now I can actually edit these videos, and I can do this. My computer can't handle editing, so I actually do it all on my phone. I can now actually do the editing on my phone, so when we get this video edited, we're gonna get it uploaded. You're going to see the rest of what it's like to train for this. Training for anything like this is extremely difficult, and as you've seen, it's been a roller coaster, and that's honestly pretty spot on to what it's like. It's a problem-solving game. That's what ultra running is. You have to be able to mentally fight through the pain and the struggle, and then you have to be the best problem solver. People who win ultra marathons are the best at problem solving. They're not the best at running. Not having a perfect training block is exactly what I needed, because all this has been a nightmare mess of chaos and just problem solving and figuring out how we can get this done and how we can make this work and how I can continue to train. And thankfully, I have an amazing coach. I'm actually in a place where, despite not running, I feel like this feels impossible, but I also still feel like this is completely possible despite not running for 2 weeks. I think it's important to have a coach. I will drop my coach's information below so that you can go to him. Thank you guys for watching. I wish that I would have had videos this whole time breaking down everything that I've done. Maybe this is for the better. I don't know. 18 weeks. We're now set. I know I've been saying 18 weeks. I'm in week 18 right now, which you're going to get your own video, its own separate video. But it's 17 weeks of training, and it would have been cool to have a week or even like the months condensed, but whatever. Here we are, we're getting it done. We're filming this. You guys kind of got a glimpse of what I've been doing, and now hopefully moving forward with these last few weeks where you can really see what this is gonna be like. That final week, there's not gonna be a video because that's the week of the run. And so the run itself is going to be the video. So, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you wanna do. Just follow along this journey. We're doing something epic, we're doing something cool. We're raising money for the Single Parent Project, so go donate to the Single Parent Project. Thank you guys for watching, and stay healthy.